Good evening, everybody. It's Saturday evening, um, just around 7:30. It's October the 14th. Um, this is the sixth one in this group of videos I'm doing about my family, and it's always so interesting. I being older, um, I get to live in many different worlds. My thoughts that are rolling around in my head, the current painting that I'm working with, and my lovely friend that comes and watches over me. Um, she was talking about her job today and how people are so irresponsible. She cleans the apartments, and there's 6 buildings in this group, and she does all of them over the Saturday, Sunday weekends. And she gets very frustrated and annoyed and upset when people leave boxes and garbage and whatnot all over the building, in the laundry room and on the stairs. And that shouldn't happen. This is a pretty clean group of buildings with good residences. But it only takes 1 or 2 bad apples to turn the whole barrel or bag bad. Potatoes and apples will do that sort of thing. So she came and visited me this evening because she knew that I had been up early, because she was up early to walk her dog before going to work for, I think she starts work about 6:30 in the morning. And she finished her work at around 2, and she stopped by my balcony to check on me, and she knew I was sound asleep with my bird on my arm in my recliner chair. And so then she dropped by a couple of hours later, and I was still sound asleep. This painting I'm working on, it's a very emotional painting for me, and it's giving me some grief. I'm not happy with it yet, so I'm pouring my heart and soul into it. So she was telling me about how frustrated she gets and how angry she gets with people that do this stupid stuff. I don't see it, but she does, because she's working throughout the whole building, and it's not the building I live in, it's another building. So anyway, as she was talking about all of this, she was getting all worked up again. And I said, you know, my dear friend, I said, you waste so much time and energy, mental, emotional, and physical energy, getting so worked up about other people's ignorance. And I said, it doesn't hurt them at all. They don't even know what they're doing to you, and if they do know, they don't care. But I said, you're wasting your energy because you relive this situation every time you talk to me about it, or whatever else it is that's annoying the socks off of you. So I said, it's an empirical situation. It's not an emotional situation. So I said, you're going to do your job anyway, because you're a caring, responsible person. So I said, do it and leave all that emotional baggage that you keep playing that emotional loop in your mind. I said, just leave it behind. So she kind of started to go off on another tirade. And I said, look, go use my washroom and pee it out and flush the toilet and get rid of it. Because I said, it's not doing you any good at all. And so she kind of blinked and stood back a little bit, and because when I first started to get to know this gal, she was pretty volatile and in a really bad family situation. And so she's gotten a whole lot of things sorted out, and she never had anybody that would talk to her like that before. So I know that she stopped playing that negative behavioral loop in her head and started to think a little differently. She left in a completely different state of mind. So I have a few stories I want to relate. This one's about my dad. My dad was a terrific motorcycle person, and he had a Harley, a big Harley. And he was going out to the farm. It would have been, I think it would have been after the war. And Mom was out at the farm helping do the field work and all of the rest of it that I've talked about. And there was a fellow who had, at that time, what was considered a pretty big tanker truck that he used to go around the country filling the farmers and ranchers' fuel tanks. And I don't know if you know what farm fuel tanks look like, but they're up on a um, angle iron support. They're like a big barrel, and they'll probably have two sections in them, one for purple gas and the other one for diesel if the farm operates diesel vehicles, or it'll have purple gas, farm gas, and highway gas, two very different things. If you're a farm slash rancher, you can buy discounted price purple gas to run in your tractors, but you can't use that gas legally in your um, going down the highway vehicles. And if you're in a rural community and the cops stop you for some reason, they can put a tube in your tank and draw a sample of what you're running your vehicle on and see if it's regular gas, clear gas, or if it's purple gas. And if you're running purple gas, you get pretty hefty fine. So anyway, this fuel hauler fellow was at the end of his tanks. He'd run and done his deliveries, and he was empty and on his way home. But he really messed up badly because he stalled his truck on railroad track. There was like one railroad track in that whole community, and the train always came by at the same time of day. And my dad just happened along when this guy was panicking about trying to get his truck off the railroad track, because it would have been a hell of a wreck, because there was still enough fuel on that. If the train, the locomotive had hit him, it would have just gone up like a bomb. So anyway, Dad kind of took a look at the situation, and he said to the guy, I think I can pull you off the track, especially because you're not loaded. He says, I think I can do that. And the guy looked at him and he said, you're, batshit crazy. And the guy said, Dad said, well, what have you got to lose? If I can get you off, you're off. If I can't get you off, well, then we better get out of Dodge, kind of thing. So anyway, Dad, I guess the trucker had probably chain. So Dad hooked the truck up to the back end of his Harley, and he got him off the truck. And the guy couldn't believe it, but Dad did that, and saved a pretty serious wreck. So when Dad got out to the home place, and he told them what had happened. I don't know if it was Mom or Grandpa, said, how's your bike? And Dad says, oh, I'll have to rebuild the clutch while I'm here, but he says I can do that. So, you know, people can do some pretty amazing things. And I have another story about that. My mom and I, when we first started building our place in Ardrossan, Alberta, after I got back from England and getting my certificate to qualify as being an instructor and barn manager, I had 40 acres of nothing. There was the house, the old original shed, the little cottage I'd converted into a barn for my 2 horses before I left, and that's all that was on it. So I found an ad in the local paper with a fellow who had sand and gravel and various wood components and whatnot. And so I called him because I needed fence posts to create my outdoor arena, and I needed the sand and whatnot. So I called him, and he really worked with me. But at that time, we just had the narrow little built-up driveway leading from the highway, secondary highway, to the house. And on the left-hand side, when you were going to the house, there was a wet area. And beside the house, on that going east, there was a beautiful peat moss kind of, wasn't a swamp, it was a slough in the wet season when the snow and whatnot hadn't dried up. But it was a beautiful little area. And I actually built my outdoor arena to the east of the house. And then my indoor arena went out there as well. So when this wonderful young man, he was a family man, and he had a pretty good sized gravel truck, and so he was hauling this stuff to me as I could afford to pay for it. And I was in the process. By now we're talking, I think 74, and I was getting ready to build my indoor arena. And he was hauling sand and power poles that I built. I built a pole arena. And so that low area, which was kind of a drainage for that pond peat bog I was talking about, it was still kind of damp in there. And so he was fine going in and dropping his load of sand, but when he came out, he got stuck. So he kind of jumped up and down and had a bit of a hissy fit. And at that time, when I was in England, Dad bought a Fordson Major tractor, little beater tractor that was completely worn out. And he had fixed it up enough that they could plow snow and whatnot with it. So when he got stuck, Mom kind of looked at the situation, and it was a big gravel truck, like you see gravel trucks all the time. And here's Mom with the little tractor, and it didn't have a electric start on it. It was a hand crank tractor. It was old. And Mom said, well, maybe I can pull you out. And the guy said, well, that'd be wonderful. That would save me a tow truck trip. So Mom goes to the backyard, and she cranks up the little tractor and comes around the back of the house with it. And the guy looks at her, and he looks at the tractor, and he looks at his truck. And he says, you're crazy. That's not possible. And so Mom says, well, I can try. She said, what have we got to lose? So um, my dad always was a collector of things, and he loved logging chains. So we had a lot of logging chain. And so Mom hooked up, I'm not sure, probably 70 feet of logging chain. And I got it hooked up to the front of this guy's big gravel truck and to the back of the tractor. And she said, now I'm going to back up and give myself a lot of slack on this chain. And she said, when you see that chain start to tighten up, she said, you put your foot to the floor kind of thing with your truck. So they did that. And Mom hit the end of that chain going as fast as she could get that tractor wound up. And she got that truck out of there. But remember that my mom was a pretty slick tractor operator. So anyway, after the dust had settled and the truck was sitting back out on the driveway and the chain was all unhooked and wrapped up and put away, the guy looked at her. I don't remember his name. He looked at her and he looked at his truck and he said, I'm going to tell my trucker friends what you've done. He said, nobody's going to believe you. He said, I can't believe it. But he said, I took part in it. So the long and the short of this story about what I just told you is that, when I was a kid, we used to wait for long weekends because Mom and Dad still had friends, dear friends, that they'd made during the war that were, one of the families was in the Crow's Nest Pass and the other one was in Kimberly. And we loved, I'd have, luggage packed and snacks made. And Mom and Dad would get home from work on a Friday night. And we'd hit the road to drive out to the Crow's Nest Pass or to Kimberly, whichever of the couples we were visiting. And we just loved it when, there was snow or fog, because we were usually doing this in the wintertime. And we were having fun. We, were the only ones on the highway at that time because everybody else was, oh, we've got to stay home because the weather's bad. But we went out and we had fun. Like as little kids, we learned how to drive on mud roads, wet mud roads. We learned how to drive in the snow, and we went out and we had fun. So when push came to shove, we understood the capabilities of our equipment and our own knowledge and our own skill at using whatever piece of equipment we were using, whether it was a tractor or a car or a truck or a motorcycle. It didn't matter what it was. And so I hear people, complain about the snow, complain about the traffic. People go away for a long weekend and come home on a Sunday afternoon or a Monday afternoon, whatever the last day of the long weekend is. And of course, between Hope and however, well, you can say all the way to Vancouver, you're talking bumper to bumper traffic. And my friend came home on one of those long weekends and she said, oh, I just hate traffic. I just hate the traffic. And she said, I get so angry with these dumb people. And I said, well, you came home knowing that there would be holiday weekend traffic all coming home at the same time you're trying to get home. I said, you either, leave really early or, get up really early in the morning and miss all that. Oh, I couldn't be bothered. And I said, it's an empirical situation. It's not emotional. Like, don't waste your energy. You know what you're getting into, so be prepared to deal with it. And I find it so interesting how people get so crossways. Like we're so entitled and we're so prepared to complain because we can't get what we want when so many other people want exactly the same thing we want, and we're angry with them. It doesn't make sense. Anyway, so I'm kind of beating myself up about this current painting. I wanted to do a Remembrance Day painting, and it's about 3/4 done now, and I can't show it. I belong to this group of photographers in the UK that are worldwide. They probably don't have even 1,000 members. They're pretty exclusive, but very talented photographers that open their work up to artists like me that mostly work with photographs because I don't travel anymore. But one of the stipulations is you can choose any of the photographs you want, but you can't share your works in progress. Once the piece is done, then you can share it to the world. But so I can't show you my poppy painting, but my first bull painting had so much success that it kind of put pressure on me to step up to the plate to a higher level. So I'm emotionally beating myself up about this poppy painting, because it is an emotional thing. It's not an empirical thing. There is the empirical part of dealing with the paint and the layers of medium and waiting for it to dry and all of that technical stuff. But the emotional part of, and because I'm trying to depict how the soldiers in World War I in the trenches would be, it doesn't strike me that people looking at it would necessarily think of it as a painting that somebody standing in a trench in World War I looking out over the edge on Armistice Day, that they wouldn't necessarily think that, but that's the emotion that I'm trying to convey, the pain and also the beauty. So anyway, I'm almost back on track. This painting is exhausting me, but I started off with a bang on this painting thing, and I kind of ran out of steam because I didn't get a cold. I almost got a cold, but I'm taking about 8 different kinds of supplements every day, and I beat it. But it's left me a little tired. But this painting is tiring as well. Anyway, it's Saturday night, and it's fall. It's a wonderful time of year, and I wish you all a fabulous day tomorrow, Sunday, and I'll keep trying to get these done. Love you all. Bye.